The next topic is going to be disposal of assets. I think this is very important, even for those of you who are not going to go into accounting, because if you have your own business or maybe if you're an independent contractor, you might have to dispose of assets. And this is something we put on tax returns all the time. For example, my husband has his own business and we had purchased a vehicle for that business. A few years later, we had to sell it and we sold it at a loss. We had to calculate how much that loss was so that we could put it on our tax return and get a deduction for his business from that. Even though we sold something, we're actually able to write money off because of that loss. Same thing with stocks and bonds and other investments. You're going to buy things at a certain price and then later on sell them and recognize gains or losses. Selling of assets applies to more than just what we're doing here in this class, applies to a lot of different other things. So I think it's important to kind of pay attention to this a little bit. When doing the journal entry, there are 4 steps involved. The first step would to be record the cash that we're receiving, which would be a debit if we're receiving cash. The second step would be to remove any accumulated depreciation if that asset does have depreciation. You're not going to depreciate all assets, but for purposes of this class, the ones we're going to be looking at probably will have depreciation. Accumulated depreciation, as a reminder, would be a credit. So in this case, to remove it off our books, we would do the opposite, which is a debit. We're going to debit accumulated depreciation because we're getting rid of this asset and therefore need to get rid of the depreciation that is linked with it. Third step is to remove the asset off the books. When we put the asset on the books, we would be doing a debit. So if we got a piece of equipment, we would debit equipment. Now that we're selling it or removing it, we would do a credit, which is the opposite, to get rid of it. Our final step would be to calculate a gain or loss if there is one. Gains are credits and losses are debits. I always have a corny way of remembering this. Losses are on the left, LL, left for loss, and gains are all right. They're on the right side. Plus, we like gains. We like making money. If I bought something for $5,000, I would love to sell it for $7,000, which would be a $2,000 gain on that asset. And the gain would be on the credit side, on the right side. Left loss, gains are all right. We're going to do a lot of practice problems with disposal of assets, so I can show you a few different scenarios for this, but we're going to be following the same 4 steps throughout. This is practice problem number 3. Garcia Co. owns equipment that costs $76,800 with accumulated depreciation of $40,800. Garcia sells the equipment for cash. Record the sale of the equipment under the following 3 separate cases. In case A, Garcia sells the equipment for $47,000 cash. As a reminder, I copied over those instructions here so that we can refer back to it. The first step is to record the amount of cash received by doing a debit. How much cash was received here when they sold it? $47,000 in cash. We'll put a debit for $47,000. Step 2, remove the accumulated depreciation by doing a debit. The accumulated depreciation is $40,800. Accumulated depreciation, a debit, $40,800. Step 3, remove the cost of the asset by doing a credit to the asset. The asset is equipment and it had cost $76,800. I skip a line because I know this is a credit. Credits go at the bottom, and I'm haven't gotten to step 4 yet, not knowing if there's a gain or loss, so I just skip to the end here. Equipment, we'll do a credit for $76,800. Now, step 4 is the hardest one. We have to do a gain or loss. What I do is I add up my debits. and then look at my credits and seeing what do I need to do so that my debits and my credits equal. When you add 47,000 plus 40,800, you get 87,800 on your debit side. Your credit side is 76,800. They don't match. We need to make them match. What I do is I just subtract the two sides and we get 11,000. Now, 87,800 equals 87,800. We had to put it on the credit side so that both my sides equal. If you had accidentally put on the debit side, then they wouldn't equal at the end. Because it's on the right side, it's a gain. Remember, my trick was that gains are all right. If the value needs to go on the right, we're going to call it a gain. That's one way to do this. That's how I do this part of the problem. Another way you can do it is try to figure out the gain or loss before you even start putting in the journal entry. You can do that by taking the cost of your asset minus your accumulated depreciation. That'll give you your book value, and then seeing what you sold it for. If you sold it for more than your book value, which we did in this case, it would be a gain. We would have gained 11,000. If the cash we're receiving is less than the book value, then we would be losing money. We're going to do the same problem a few more times in different scenarios. For Part B, it's the same information. Garcia sells the equipment for $36,000 cash. I did also copy over the instructions again here, along with some of the information from the problem from the previous slide. Let's still follow the same steps. We record the cash received by doing a debit. How much cash was received in Part B? It was $36,000 cash. We will do a debit to cash for $36,000. Step 2, remove the accumulated depreciation. This is the same as in Part A. Accumulated depreciation was $40,800. We do a debit to remove that from our books. Step 3, remove the asset cost. The asset had cost us $76,800. We will do a credit for that. The fourth step would be to record the gain or loss. Add up your debits and add up your credits. When you add up your debits, we get 76,800. When we look at our credits, it's also 76,800. Therefore, they already equal. There is no gain or loss. We sold the asset for exactly what it's worth to us on our books. Scenario C. Garcia sells the equipment for $31,000 cash. Step 1. Record the cash received as a debit. Cash of $31,000. Step 2. Remove accumulated depreciation by doing a debit. Accumulated depreciation, $40,800, just like in A and B. Step 3. Remove the asset cost, $76,800. Equipment, we'll do $76,800 as a credit. Once again, add up your debits and add up your credits to see how much they are off by. When I add up the debits, I get $71,800. My credits are $76,800. How much are they off by? $5,000. And which side do I need to put that $5,000 on so they both equal? If I put a $5,000 here as a debit, then this side will now equal to $76,800. That's what I need to do. And if I'm using the debit side, which is the left side, we're going to call this a loss. Losses are on the debit side. A loss of that $5,000. My debits and credits equal. Always check yourself when you're done with these problems to make sure they do equal so that you don't have something on the wrong side. That's the end of the topic on disposing of assets. Just remember these 4 steps and it will help you throughout these problems.